It all starts with a good old CL Smooth.
What is that?
Coors Light.
Yeah.
Oh. The mountains are blue, so you know it's cold.
Yeah.
Not if you touch it with your hand.
I forgot that they did that until you mentioned it, and then I was like pretty much my litmus test is like, is it?
Is it
Are the
blue?
mountains
Yeah, the
blue?
mountain's blue, yeah.
Not if you hold it in your hand and it gives you a cold sensation.
Oh yeah, that's
Oh, you
it's
got to
not
touch
cold.
it.
It's
Yeah.
not cold enough.
I drink my beer with a straw, so
And a plastic one because I don't like that paper shit.
it's soggy.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Well, come on, baby. Come on. Work like Daddy needs you to work. That's not too bad. Let's play bikes. Well, the Olympics are over, and if you paid attention, the U.S. women rocked it, Remco Evenepoel dominated, and breakdancer Raygun embarrassed it.
It was rough.
Did you see her?
Yeah.
We're talking about breakdancing in Olympics. That's what makes me crazy.
You gotta look her up, man. It was bad. And by the way,
She got
breaking
0 points, by the way.
Yeah, lowest score ever in an Olympics. And breaking is not in the 2028 Olympics
Well,
now.
I heard that apparently each location gets to pick their own like
Rotating.
special thing to bring,
Oh.
and breaking was for Paris.
Oh, it's really bad.
It was really bad.
I mean, her. I didn't watch anything else, but
I didn't.
she's going to be an internet sensation, so she's got her bills covered. We try to do all three at tonight's episode. We're going to try to do all three: rock it, dominate it, and embarrass it. This is the Packville Cycling Podcast. I'm your host, Pat Bolger, and we are live in the Rim Break Bar with a little mood lighting thrown in for effect. And you can play along if you want to see what that looks like on the YouTube channel. You'd get a heads up, by the way, if you subscribe. You would know. It'd be like bing. And it wouldn't be an annoying bing. It'd be a good bing. As well as our homepage at packflow.com. Our tradition is to start the show like a proper stage race with a prologue. So tonight's prologue question is, gentlemen, what's your dinner ambiance? Is it music? If so, what kind or artists? Is it silence? Or is it plopping down in front of the TV? You got to be truthful here. So let's see who's here. Number one, he is my personal partner in helping local breweries justify opening before noon, Mr. Paul Main. How are you, man?
I know where the spots are.
Yeah, exactly. I texted my wife today after the ride. She says, it's not even noon yet. I was like, oh, shit.
If they serve, that's
It's legal.
Yeah.
Belgium. The bars are open 24 hours.
There we go.
So there's no.
They got shit
Yeah,
figured out.
sweet.
They got shit figured out. What's your dinner ambiance?
For my wife and I, it depends. We used to do a lot. I'd listen to put
Oh,
on.
I knew I was going to do that the second I touched it. Good night, everybody.
Blah, 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 blah. When my wife and I used to listen to jazz, Earl Klugh. I designed an Earl Klugh. It's like little guitars from
Okay.
George Benson. There's
Oh.
yeah, you know George Benson.
Yeah.
So
I just know George when he sang.
Anyway.
He'd sing along with his bass, with his guitar
nice.
solo. Yeah. Yeah.
not always, but
Yeah.
probably the few songs that you heard. But when my wife goes to work, we watch some cozy mysteries. They call it on BritBox,
Okay.
and also on Acorn. They're very simple, kind of like in a certain way, kind of like Quincy and Murder, She Wrote,
Okay.
where it's like brainless.
You know.
Yeah,
you're-
you've got to figure it out, you
Yeah.
know. But you get to see, like on BritBox, you get to see different parts of the world and that type
Yeah.
of thing. So there's another element as opposed to
Stupid dialogue.
Quincy's. Yeah. So yeah, that's nice, easy, because she needs to have simplicity going into chaos
Okay.
at the ER. So
Okay.
yeah.
Next off, he's the only rider I know who claims to not climb but hangs with the climbers. Mr. Jackson Bulger. How are you, man?
Good, thanks.
It was so funny. It's just like, oh, I let the climbers, go. You still got like a second off of the PR of the KOM for a big climb.
Yeah. I mean,
So you're a poser. You're a liar.
I think it depends on the climb. I could
Yeah.
do the power climbs. I mean, I was I had an average cadence of 72 on that ride.
That's right there.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's
Yeah.
perfect.
So I just muscle my way through 'em.
Oh my God. What's your dinner ambiance?
It depends on the night. I will say, like these nights, it's usually we'll like turn something on, but then we'll pause it because we haven't really like seen each other all day, so like we'll make it 5 minutes into a show and then be like, oh, I thought of this thing that happened for my
so
day.
you stop
and then,
it. Yeah.
And then we keep doing. And then sometimes what we'll do is we'll be like, we aren't really watching this, so we'll just turn on music or like the news in the background, things like that. The Olympics were a great thing to have on in the background. Or sometimes we just full on will eat and turn on a show or YouTube videos that we really want to watch. But it's never just like pure silence.
Yeah, no.
That feels a little uncomfortable.
That does. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Me, I'm a perpetual sucker for a good coffee cake. I am. I'm never going to lose the weight, guys, because I found coffee cake.
It is good, isn't it?
It's
excellent.
really this place in particular is delicious. I prefer music. I used to prefer seated at the dinner table and a proper dinner every night. I wake up in the morning wondering what I'm gonna make for dinner that night. It is my obsession. When I retire, I will drive around all day to different grocery stores until I find the right ingredients. Like, oh, the this is better over here, so I'm gonna go here. Oh, the bread's good over here. Oh, I'm gonna get that. That's what I will do. That is how I will entertain
I can
myself.
feel the globe getting warmer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, maybe I'll just take my e-bike with the trailer
there we
or
go.
something.
There you
like
go.
that,
That's a good
you know?
idea.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I was all over that. However, there are times, and we were always music. And however, there are times when the wife and I just sit in the living room and watch the previous night's late night comedy talk shows, just the monologues from specific talk shows, and
Like Kimmel and then
and Colbert. And then there's a running thing in our house because my wife will start talking about work or something like that, and if she, we have during the news to talk about work, but if it's during the monologue, I sometimes look at her and I go, monologue. She goes, you're right, I'm sorry, I'll wait. Or we pause like you guys do. I don't want her the listener to think that Jimmy Kimmel's monologue is more important than my wife's conversation, but
you don't go zip.
No,
zip,
shut up.
hip.
No talking. I'm finding joy in life. But that's how we do it around here. And so how's the cycling life, guys? We have no Waples tonight, hence we're on time.
And there's no stepping on other people's voices.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet. How are things going? Jackson, you did the Thursday Night Thunder? Is that what they're calling it? TNT.
Yeah, whatever it is. Last week was a pretty good week. I ended up with about 130 overall
Holy
for the
shit.
whole training week, which was good, especially after the long ride we did. On Friday. But our local TNT ride was good. It was fun. It was fast. It ended up being I like that we kind of made it this course now. Not as many. You're not really going through intersections. It's just a very
right turns.
Yeah, it's all right turns. It's I think how it should be.
Yep.
But it was good. It was, like I said, it was fast. We started that first climb, and we turned around, and I realized that it was only me and another guy.
Wow.
And we had gone faster than a current gravel pro who has been on the podium of Unbound.
Wow.
So I felt pretty good about myself after that. I think I got second on the day. Because I was behind a guy who is smaller than I, both weight and height. Not by that much in height. But it was I struggle on those climbs where it's not like I can stick it at like 1,000. I can do like a 13 surge really hard and like sprint to the line. But when it's like a 700 or an 800 and it's just like winding slowly at like 30 seconds, 45 seconds, then I'm kind of like, oh, this wears on me. So that's when I talk about the climbers letting those go, those are the type of people that can roll those numbers. I can burst really hard for about max of 30.
The two of you guys are kind of coming up through the ranks together. It's kind of cool that you're kind of this friendly rivalry going on. It's nice to have that with somebody.
Yeah, and it's like I think friendly rivalry is the best way to put it, because it's like neither of us really like will chirp at each other. We're both kind after and before, so it's just like we both respect and know our abilities.
Get in the car and swear their names and say you're going to burn their house to the ground. That kind of
have
shit.
a little doll at home. Put pins in it.
Doll. Yeah.
Punch the steering wheel so hard the airbag comes out. That's a friendly rivalry, right?
Paul, how'd your week go?
I think it was all with you.
We did too. If you count
and
today.
I rode one by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I rode one by myself. I don't know if that. Did we do Saturday or Sunday?
Sunday.
Okay,
we did
Saturday went by myself because you had something going on.
I was cooked.
Yeah.
I didn't have shit
you
going
rode
on.
with your son.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good one.
That was so weird. I rode Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, and then if you count today as the 7 days between shows, because that's how the week is divided. So those were the days. Friday, Jackson, you and I just went for. We thought it was going to be just like, and it was casual. We were conversation the whole time, except the city limit signs.
Yes.
I got home and I was destroyed. I went upstairs to change clothes, and I did. And the next thing I knew was an hour and a half later, I woke up. I just my head hit the pillow just a second. I was out. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, what the hell? It was such a weird ride. I think it was, as we racked it up, I think it was dehydration, and I think it was just the fact that it was still 90, and we were out there exposed for 3+ hours, 3.5 hours, which is not that long, but it just
that isn't an exposed ride though.
Yeah.
Falling the river.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and it's not like we did a ton of climbing. And Sunday and then today, Paul and I have perfected the art of the pre-ride and post-ride. I just want to say that, and that nobody else can beat it, because we're starting out, and this is where I'm gonna throw him. And they don't need this plug. We've been starting at this place called First Avenue Coffee here in Spokane, and that's where that coffee cape comes from. And I took a picture of it, and it's on the Packfiller Instagram. It is thick. It is probably at least 1.5 inches thick. Would you say?
Yep.
And depending on the cut you get, it's big, with walnuts and all that shit in it, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is so good. That was all I had eaten today, and I didn't need anything until about an hour and a half ago. But god, man, they're filling, and it's delicious. Yeah. And then post, we've been hitting a brewery in town after the ride, so it's like no benefits. We, other than mental and spiritual benefits, there is no fitness being gained. But I don't give a flying.
We're not going
fuck.
backwards.
No, this is true.
Yeah.
And it was nice.
I do want to mention the KOM that Sam and I had talked about so much.
Yes. Should we just?
Yeah. Finally, I know. I didn't take it. I tied it.
You tied it.
So, however,
Sam was quick to point that out.
Yeah, he was, because
his ego is very fragile.
It is. But I know that I can get even less time. I saw that the lovely Roger Thompson, who
drink,
who
completed a pretty mega thing this weekend.
I'm gonna bring him up here shortly. Yeah.
Commented. He goes. I think it was like, nicely done. We're all happy about it, which I appreciated that comment.
So speaking kind of which, we have kind of nothing to train on for the horizon. So what's keeping you guys going? I'm going to deal with this more in the topic tonight, but what's keeping you guys going?
I don't know what it is, but I think I constantly have in my head that I'm like training for a race that might come up.
Yeah.
Like I got to stay fit in case I want to go to a Thursday night, or I got to stay fit because that's just kind of what I do. Anymore, it's just the routine. It's not necessarily I'm training for anything.
Battle ready.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Like a prepper, like a doomsday prepper.
Yeah.
You're just still gathering bread.
Yeah.
Okay.
And anymore, since we are nearing the fall time. gross. I know.
Don't say it.
I didn't say anything.
Okay.
Everybody was saying it on the ride.
I know.
But I know.
It's
Yeah.
too effing soon.
But anymore, I feel like we don't slow down. You just keep going year round anymore.
And I think that's a big deal about it is, but it's so hard to stay cycling specific, especially once you hit November, and try to maintain that, because I don't think I'm sure there are people out there who can maintain cycling workouts year round, but I'm gonna need
You live
to
a
mix
little
it up.
south from here.
Yeah, that way, or just
Yeah.
even that mentality. They're on Zwift. They're constantly thinking, or they're riding outside in the winter or something like that. I'm not that person anymore. But you gotta find a way to keep going. And speaking of keeping going, we got to let out. How about we just do it again? For the one and only Drink Roger Thompson, an occasional teammate of us here at the Revape Backfiller Cycling. He rides for Octagon Elite, which is a triathlon team. He finished Leadville this past weekend in 9 hours and 40 minutes. Which is cruising.
Yeah,
which is cruising.
That's doing well.
Yeah, he earned that elite start, so he's right behind the pros, which is, I think, a huge thing. I'm going to have to ask him about that, although it's not like he knows what it's like to start back with the cannon fodder,
Ever in his life.
Which is where I was when I did Leadville, and there were a couple times I stopped because it bottlenecked so badly. You stop and you'd wait for about 30 seconds, 45 seconds, even longer and stuff like that. And you're going off and you're just pushing off with one foot. But I bet it was beneficial. And I do want to say that he also mentioned to me that he had passed and left behind a unofficial former 7-time Tour finisher. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is
wow,
right.
Nice, dude.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, right? So way to go, Roger. And so there we go. And I know Paul won't, but I could be talked into another Leadville attempt. Jackson, could you be talked into one if you had the steed for it?
It's interesting. I was talking to somebody about that this weekend, and I have built my body so specifically to that short, fast.
You could train it.
But what I was going to say is that it would take a lot of shifting in my training and in my mental state of it all. So I could do it if I completely switched how I do my entire cycling life.
So the irony is that was a really long answer for a short question.
Yeah, that's how we are audio.
Well, no, the irony I'm saying is it's like you took a long distance to answer a short question.
Okay.
See what I was going with there?
I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
I'm caught up.
But
so
the
you wouldn't do one.
Maybe. Maybe.
The thing is training for that. It depends on your work schedule and stuff.
Oh yeah,
because you're sacrificing if you work normal hours and go to do it. There's some minus wife or kids or whatever time. That's the only way you can train for something like that.
You did 90 miles for the district championships road race.
I did it.
Yeah,
but that's not 10 hours.
That's true. But it's still those kinds of distances. When I was training for mine, I didn't do anything over 100 miles. Why? It's
so different though.
Yeah. Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It is. Race for the women was won by Melissa Rollins in a time of 7 hours and 10 minutes. That's as absolutely flying. And of course, the men was won by Keegan Swenson, 5 hours 49 minutes and 8 seconds.
Boy, that speed, you'd think you'd have drop bars.
Yeah. And you look what you did.
What?
He rode it on a mountain bike with drop bars, which is and the course, at least as far as I can remember, I did it in 2016. Big variety of terrain. Nothing overly technical. There are some sections where, at least as I said, so don't at me if the course has changed, but there's some sections where there are some small drop offs and stuff like that. But when I was doing them, you're so busy. There's somebody right on your wheel and you're right on somebody else's wheel. And you don't know the drop-offs happen until you're
dropped off.
Yeah, until your butt puckers up and you go, oh, God. Oh, I guess I cleared it. And things like that. And so the race is again, in my opinion, it is a battle against fueling and a battle against elevation. That's the huge part of the challenge. Now, some climbs. The worst one is Powerline coming home. Columbine's a long climb, but Powerline's horrible, and it is a like those dirt trail that turn into a road, basically, with a bunch of drainage in it and things like that. But it is brutal. Roger confessed that he had to walk up it, and I did too when I did it. It was absolutely brutal. Have you guys ever dealt or ever worked in terms of dealing with elevation in terms of a race or training or stuff like that? Paul, you've never had to deal with it or anything at all? Jackson? Other than Leadville, I remember Mammoth, they had a race in Mammoth Mountain, California, which was a road stage race. And the base of Mammoth is at 9,000 feet. So, even when we're down below in the town of Mammoth Mountain, somebody will probably correct me if I'm wrong, but it's still a 7,000 plus feet. So that's a difference when you're coming from us here at 2,000 or even somebody who lives at sea level. It is a noticeable change. And I unintentionally did the race low, sleep high, because my parents, bless their hearts, booked me a room, not, kind of sight unseen. Basically, this is back in the days when my parents would just throw me in my car and tell me to go to Mammoth Mountain, California, and I was in high school, and the place they booked me was at the ski hill, so I was up there, but I flew there, and I got a ride from a buddy, Kirk Willett, from the airport to Mammoth, and then they would come up and pick me up and take me to the races every day. Oops, there's my mic. And I remember vividly, they drove me up there to the ski resort, and I got there, and I thought, okay, I'm in a big, huge, kind of like a dorm. I think it was the dorm for the employees or something like that. And there was nobody there. I mean, tumbleweeds blowing down the hallways. It was just completely ghost town up there. And I remember sitting there in my bed going, how am I going to eat? I had to get on my bike and ride down to the town of Mammoth Mountain, California, eat food, or buy shit at the grocery store, hook the grocery bag on my handlebars, and ride back up to the ski resort every day after the stages. I was flying by the end of that race.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I got stronger as that race went on. I think I ended up in the top 10 overall, just simply because I was sleeping at 9,000 feet and racing at 7 or 6.
And climbing the mountain for meals. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
that's crazy.
One of the last stages was up that hill. And it was like riding up my driveway.
Yeah.
I was like, I
knew
know
where to go.
Yeah, I knew where to attack and things like that. So those of you, when I say I can't climb, I used to be able to kind of climb. So there we go. Have you guys ever heard or used any of the gimmicks for that type of stuff? Jackson, you and I passed somebody, I think, on a ride, and she had it looked like one of those, not a kazoo, but one of those little whistles in her mouth. Yeah. And it was an air restricting device. Mm-hmm. There are masks you can put on your face that'll restrict the air you're getting in, making you think you're training at elevation. I've heard it's complete bullshit. I heard that it doesn't do shit.
Yeah.
But I or even more so, the people with the hyperbaric tents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Those I heard actually are real. Those work.
The rule is train low, sleep high, right?
Yeah. I know there's someone on the EF team, Harry Sweeney, and I think the whole team does this, but they put like a big black tent around their bed, and it
how
pumps,
romantic.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
And it pumps in the type of air, like thinner air. Yeah.
Altitude tents.
Yeah. I've also seen just purely on like Instagram, some of the high end runners, what they'll do is they'll tape their mouths. They'll tape their mouths at night, so they're only breathing through their nose, which I just think is like, I don't know, some of these little things to, I don't know, do what they're for, but they seem funny to me.
I have a histamine issue sometimes. This is me being old. I have this histamine problem, and if my mouth was taped shut and my body released that histamine, which stuffs up my nose, I would die. I would die trying to get fit.
I'd just like to see both of you guys with tape over your mouths. Take it
with the mustache.
Oh yeah.
I got to shave.
My wife would just occasionally wake me up with it, probably like, wake up.
Yeah. I also think it really depends on what, like, where you work. For instance, like somebody who works in a school, they could never have that. They have a stuffy nose the whole year.
Yeah.
Like if you have any sort of allergy, stuffy nose, anything, like you are not waking up in the morning.
And what you and I did when we went down, Jackson, which was a really good plan, we drove from here to Montana, stayed at 5,000, 6,000, did some training at 7,000, 8,000, and then went from there, and we got to well, not to Leadville, we stayed in Breckenridge, but we stayed there at 10,000 feet for 2 to 3 days. I remember talking to Roger before we went. He didn't have that luxury. You know, they had to fly down and just do it. So I'm anxious to know how that affected him in terms of, you know, especially that shock to the system to go from 2,000 feet to 10,000 feet. It's got to be a kick in the gut.
Pretty crazy.
Almost literally.
Yeah.
So, okay. You guys, so much for that question. None of you guys have ever trained it out?
No,
Ever raced
I've
at
only
altitude?
trained here.
Wow. Well, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for nothing. Let's get to the news, shall we? Tonight's news. Support from our friends at Scratch Labs. Fuel, flavor, and practicality. God. This music makes me excited. From high carb option to keeping you hydrated through the day, Scratch has you covered. We are all firm believers here. Paul especially. He's wearing the kit right now. I encourage you to get to scratchlabs.com or swing by your local bike shop, local bike shop, and ask them if they carry Scratch. A lot of them do. Several good ones around here do. Are you guys watching the FOMS, the Women's Tour de France?
I haven't had a chance to.
Today's a lot of TV to watch because it's 2 stages, which we haven't. I don't remember bike races doing that anymore.
Back in the old day, there was a protest in the Tour, the sit down, and led by your favorite, Bernardino. And they decided that they no longer can do that, so I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Well, the TT was
6K.
Yeah. You can almost hold your breath.
Yeah.
That long.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's insanely quick. And then the road stage today, I could be wrong. I don't have it here in front of me. I think it was only about 70K.
Yeah, it wasn't that far.
Yeah, dead pan flat. But good racing.
Sprint.
Yeah, really good racing. Good sprinting. As of today's double stage finish, the one and only Demi Vollering is in yellow, but that shouldn't shadow the amazing first 2 stages by Charlotte Kool.
Yeah.
I hope I got her name correct. If not, I Americanized it. First 2 sprint stages. DSM is having a wonderful beginning of Tour de France's.
Yeah.
Tour de France. What is plural for Tour de France? Yeah, they won the first stage. Yeah. Elisa Longoborghini out of the training due to a training crash. Does anybody, from what you guys have seen, be able to appear to take this away from Demi throughout this week?
Don't know. That's the hard one to play because who would have said Wiebes? First of all, she lost the stage 1 in the sprint. She had a mechanical.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, it's a given this time. And Kool just like, wow, she gambled, hit a slot, and went. And it was a good sprint. She did a good job.
Both of them were really fast. Chloe Dygart's currently sitting at 5 seconds back. I don't know if she has the climbing legs.
Nope.
Let me look
Sorry,
here.
Sam.
No. Yeah, exactly. Wiebes is at 3 seconds. That's not necessarily her forte. Kool now down to 5th. Who do we
Where's
got?
Voss at?
I don't have her. She's not in the top 10. Kristen Faulkner sitting at 7th. Ellen Van Dyke at 8th.
That's because of her TTs.
Yeah. These are all just kind of TT riders. So it's going to be interesting. The parkour gradually grows in intensity over the next several days. It's got climbs in them and and things like that. But then Saturday and Sunday are both mountaintop finishes, with Sunday at L'Alpe d'Huez.
Nieuwe Doma is obviously riding this.
Yes.
I'd be surprised to see, or I'd be not surprised. I'd be interested to see what her week looks like by the end of it, especially with the climbing stages coming. I think that she'll probably be the strongest competitor.
She does
to Vollering.
Yeah, she does have that sort of stuff in the tank, but it just looks. I don't know. Are we maybe in some sort of a changing of the generations, or the next group is coming in and changing things about? So it should be interesting to see how it goes. I love the enthusiasm behind it, and kudos to Zwift for putting this making this such a big race. I'd love to eventually see it more than just 1 week, but we talked about that ad nauseum. Yeah. So there we go. Also, the men's peloton nearing the time for the final Grand Tour of the year with Sunday's start of the Vuelta Ciclista a España. I think I said that right. We all remember last year with Sepp Kuss bringing home the first Grand Tour win in, well, a while, depending on whose history book you're reading. Who stands out, guys, in terms of what you see on that list in front of you? Preliminary start list, thanks to our friends over at Pro Cycling Stats. There are several teams without full lineups: Alpecin de Koenig, Cofidis, Intermarché, Soudal Quickstep, not showing their entire lists. But there are some riders who definitely stick out. Is Primož Roglič going to finally get the big Grand Tour that he needs to salvage this season?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's your first.
And it'll be his fourth, and that's the most anybody's won the Vuelta.
Yeah.
4 times.
You think it's going to happen for him?
Yeah.
You do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just flat out.
Yep.
End of the conversation.
Yep.
I don't know. This is the first race of the year that I look at, and I don't know who's going to win. I really don't. I thought Primož going into the Tour was flying. I thought he was racing really well, and then he did his thing. He always has to.
Yeah.
When it comes to a race with yellow in it, so I don't really.
Here it comes.
Yeah, that's what he has to do. So it's one of those races where I think it's exciting because it's very unknown.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was before we went on air, there were a lot of riders I was trying to look around with. I'm going to cheer Sepp Kuss until I'm blue in the face. He did come through a pretty shaky start to Vuelta Burgos, but he did end up taking the overall win in that one. So that shows he's on some good form, and God knows Visma Lease Bike could use a little bit of a perk me up at the end of the season. I'm really excited about Richard Carapaz, especially with how he chose to end the Tour de France this year. He's not a stranger to the top step of a podium of a Grand Tour. Mm-hmm. So he knows how to do this. But I agree with you. Other than that, I'm looking through the start list going, wow, it's kind of open. We have entered back into that realm where there are 1-2 guaranteed favorites at a lot of these races, one of them usually having the initials of TP. But it's going to be kind of a... Vuelta is always an exciting one. I mean, because it's like that. As you say, it's always up in the air, and it is bumpy.
Yeah, and I think... if Primož is going to have any sort of competitors, I think that Adam Yates, is going to be a strong competitor to that. I think he gave a lot during the Tour for Tadej, but I don't think he gave everything for Tadej. I'm really interested to see also how fifth place at the Tour finisher Mikel Landa rides. That was probably the best Tour I've ever seen him produce.
Yeah. And that shift, tell me I'm not wrong, in that when did he shift to Soudal Quickstep?
This year.
This year. Mm-hmm. So and that was a good fit. And not very often you get to say a shift to Soudal Quickstep was a good move. It's been a while since that. So I asked you guys to pick 5 riders. And it's a little out of our norm for our Grand Tour picks. We're just 5 riders across the board. I think it's because mainly several of us are going to pick a lot of the same riders, so we can just cross those names off if we all choose them. However, I think there's going to be some variations. For example, I will go first. Primož Roglič. We all can pretty much cross that out. I think Richard Carapaz has got a chance at doing something.
I picked him.
You did. Sepp Kuss, obviously returning champion. Paul, you didn't pick him. Jackson, you didn't pick him. I get to keep Sepp Kuss. Mm-hmm. Yay. Giulio Ciccone. Little Trek. I see some stage wins coming out of Ciccone.
Yep.
And then finally I picked João Almeida.
Yeah.
Because he's Portuguese and my dog is Portuguese. No offense to João Almeida. I just like him. I like him to do something. So what do you guys have that variates from that?
Varies. Let's see. I have Roglič. I have Carapaz. I did pick Mikel Landa.
Same.
I picked Adam Yates.
Same.
And then I picked a white jersey of the Giro d'Italia, Antonio Tiberi.
Ooh.
Good choice.
Okay. Okay.
I picked Wout for stage wins.
You picked Wout. So that was all you had left, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no contest. We can't do that. It wouldn't be fair if I had 3 riders and you guys only had
No,
one.
that's
Well, I think it's also fun to watch those riders. You know,
Just
keep an
bragging
eye on them.
rights.
Yeah.
Bragging
Yeah,
rights.
yeah.
Bragging rights. Okay. I can't think of anything else from the Pro Peloton other than the fact that we had a busy season. What a busy season it's been. I did not catch Classic San Sebastian. Who did?
I didn't either.
I did.
You did. Paul did. Who won it?
It was, oh gosh, now I'm.
Yeah. Sorry.
Hang on.
Yeah. I can bring it up. Sorry, I don't mean to
No,
throw
no.
you under that bus. None
No,
of us knew
and I-
anyway.
I watched the whole thing.
'Cause
Oh, it was and I told you on the show too.
did.
It was actually faced off from Hershey, and also Alaphilippe, and on a final climb they went, and I was surprised. But if you watch the last when those two are away, Alaphilippe almost went down, just looked over his shoulder and almost overlapped Hershey's wheel. I was like, wow, this guy's still loosey goosey.
Squirrely. Yeah.
Yeah,
And they
But
could
the-
be very well teammates.
yeah. We were talking about.
Yeah.
Alaphilippe might go to Tudor Pro Cycling.
Yep.
Might go. Yeah.
It's one of the talks that in Total Energy.
Yeah. What was that? What was the grumbly mumbly face?
Julian's reaching the end of his career.
Tudor, I think, has got a future.
I hope so. I
Yeah.
like their kit.
I like their bikes.
I like their bikes
you guys
too.
both should.
But if he goes to Total Energy, that's that.
Yeah.
yeah.
He'll go the way of a Sagan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Tonight's mid-ride discussion is here thanks to our friends at Muck Off. You guys, keep your best friend, or at least one of the top 3 of your best friend list, clean and working properly with the amazing line of maintenance and cleaning products offered by Muck Off. Bike cleaning and maintenance is pure zen. If you're like me, you go downstairs, you have a shop space or some sort of space, you turn on some music and you just give it a chance. And next thing you know, you're enjoying actually working on your bike. Use Muck Off to help the process. Paul, I'm gonna throw you under the bus again on this one, because on our ride today, and I'm hopefully Jackson with his YouTube prominence, not prominence, experience knows this, because you guys are subscribers to this same person, and we can mention the person. I'm fine with that, obviously, because he deserves the credit. We talked about an individual rider and his recent exploits at the Cascade Cycling Classic, and so could you give us a little refresher on that one, so people who don't know what's going on?
Yeah,
know
a little
what's going on?
context. If you don't know EJ's training, he started off doing some, before he anything else, he did a lot of editing for Jeff at NorCal Cycling and his stuff. He became a project for Jeff because Jeff has a coaching system, and he put him on this from couch to Cat 4. EJ was, Ethan Jones is his name, was into baseball, then got into gaming, and he got up to 265 pounds, and they put him on this program. And I think you could probably correct me if I'm wrong. He went from Cat 4 to at least Cat 2 in a year, wasn't that right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And his goal, like the next year, was to become a Cat 1, and he got it towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
And so he and Jeff kind of split off a while back. So EJ's been doing his own stuff. And he was actually up at Tour Bloom. You could see his coverage there. For all those people who hear us go, yak, 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 drink.
No, it was really good coverage too.
Yeah.
I like his version of the race.
And so he did Cascade Classic, and I'm beating myself up because that's one that I certainly should have made an effort to go to.
Yeah,
That would
it's
have been a
back,
good one.
baby.
Yeah. And it's just a crit. They want to expand it to, and EJ actually promotes this a little bit. Show some interest, let people know they may make it into a stage race next year, or they just had feelers. And they didn't have a massive turnout, but there was good cash. So did you see his latest?
I didn't, but I heard the rundown. I follow him on Instagram.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he goes, it's pretty good if you get towards the very end. He was on a team that invited him on. I mean, the guy can produce, but you could tell right off the bat he wasn't in his footage. He was not in the game, and he dug himself a hole. and he did some desperation, and the team that was on kind of gave him their thoughts of what he did, and he was supposed to, potential be a teammate. He kind of beats himself a little bit, and even admit that he almost thought about maybe this isn't for me. I mean, he went to a dark place, but
maybe bike racing isn't a thing for me.
Yeah. And that's what we were talking about is like, dang, I've been doing this for 39 years, and I've been there at least twice a year. Sometimes I had a year that was the whole year. It's just like, what am I doing? So, but here I am at 61, and you learned how to deal with that.
Yeah. Well, and that's where, because of that experience, it made me think about quitting or even burnout in that sense. This time of year, I know there are many of us who just are plain sick of our bikes, or that there could be some who've even been trying so hard to achieve a goal or a fitness level or a competitive level or something like that that we want, and it just doesn't arrive. I kind of want to bring that into the equation tonight. So, and it doesn't have to be necessarily, to start out, it doesn't necessarily have to be about bike racing, but talk to me about a time that you hung it up on something, where you just, enough was enough. And was it a painful experience? Was it a cleansing experience? There we go. Anybody want to jump into this?
I mean, I kind of did. I played soccer until I was a junior in high school, and I started in, I think, kindergarten. And that's a pretty long time. You're 17, 16 years old, and that's what you know. But what the sport becomes in the States after a little while is, rather than everybody's having fun, it becomes you are for yourself. Nobody else matters. You are honestly looking at everybody else, and if you can, you will step on their throat. It doesn't matter how anybody feels. And so I think that kind of cut up to me after a little while, that there's just no more humanity in the sport that I loved. You could never relax. People would just tell you the worst things. And so I got to a point where I was like, I don't want to hate myself. I don't want to hate what I do every single day. And I couldn't do it anymore. And I think that it also, I think you guys also saw it as well. My family also saw it as well. And I don't know if you guys could have done it anymore. Well, cause it's such like it's such this show. It also doesn't become like who you are as a player. It just becomes how much you can love on the coach and how much money you can produce for that certain team. It's just, it was a stupid setup, the one that we experienced, and I had to eventually just say no more. I still love the sport. I talk about here how I'd go back and play it.
Yeah.
I genuinely studied it for a super long time, but it's just not my place to be.
What was it that motivated that actual white flag moment? I kind of remember, I think at one point in time, I think we were in the car going somewhere, and you're just like going, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. What was it that said that I'm out into your mind?
Well, my last year, the team that I was on switched to a new format, and there are tryouts every year for the team that I was on. But it was kind of one of those things where they're not looking for new team. They're not looking for you to move teams. They're looking for new team members. And so that's what I was used to. But this year was very different. This year was either you try out and you either make the A squad, which is like the team they're going to bring everywhere, and they're going to like play at the biggest tournaments at. And then there's a B squad, which still plays tournaments, but doesn't play at the high-end tournaments. And you can be drawn from that pool of the B squad to sit on the bench, essentially. And I had given a lot to this team over probably 2 years, year and a half. I'd started every single game. I played every single game, even through injury, even through illness, all that stuff. I'd given a lot. And I tried out for this team, and I knew I was better than this one player who played in a different position, but this coach was so hell-bent on giving him every single opportunity that the world could possibly, like, just come out of nowhere with.
Yeah.
And I tried out. We played nearly the same position. He made it. Everybody said he wasn't as good as I was, but he made it because his own mother was the team manager. She ordered the kits. She ordered that stuff. And so he got that spot because she did a little bit more. She paid a little bit more money. And I remember looking at this thing and being like, this is stupid. If no matter how good you are at this sport, it doesn't matter. What matters is how good you look in terms of a dollar sign. And that was the point where I went, I'm done. Because no matter what I can do, it doesn't matter.
So it was that tryout moment.
Yes, it was. It was when I got the call from my coach and he said, "You're on the B team." I went, in my head, I went, "You're a dick. You've called me an idiot for a year and a half."
Oh my God, really?
And I've still bent over backwards for you.
Yeah.
Then I don't want to be a part of this stupid cult anymore.
There were, yeah. God, as a father, I'm a little pissed off right now. It's weird that Pat would get pissed off. But I would love to have known that this guy, that he called you a loser. And if you told me, I apologize.
No.
Because if I saw him in public today, I would kick him in the nuts.
But it's like what I
Which
think,
is assault, not go to jail.
Yeah. What I think sometimes masculinity in sports heavy masculinity in sports can sometimes teach is that your emotions don't matter, and what I'm going to say to you, you have to just blow away. And if you can't blow that away, then you're not cut out for this shit.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is what kills. That's honest to God. That is why I think we have such a shitty men's national team. Is because everybody's looking at everybody else and saying, this is my style of coaching. If you can't cope with it, you need to fuck off.
Or you need your mom to buy jerseys and give blowjobs.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Wow.
That last part I made up. That last part I made up.
But it's just such a bad system.
Yeah. Paul, you talked about years off and things like that. Was there ever a time when you just, it doesn't have to be the bike, just hung something up and went and walked away from it? And did you regret that decision?
There's two incidents, and both of them deal with cycling, and both of them, in retrospect, I'd say it worked out for the better. One was I had a bad year and I was going through my practice.
I thought you were going to use the practice marriage as your thing you quit.
No, there's another one, and I've mentioned it before here. In 1988, at the end of the season, I had a female teammate that her mom was French, and she had family in France, and talking to her and setting up a team in France, I had a chance to go to France and race in 1989. 88, that was the year, and they had a place they were going to put me up. I got a team. Everything was kind of lined up.
Wow.
But in the meantime, I also put in for financial aid. I had pulled out of college for a while, and I thought, at 88, I'm turning 25 years old. I have, this is the time. If I'm going to do anything in cycling, this is the time. Or hang it up and go to college. And so it came down to the last second. I mean, because I ended up getting quite a bit of financial aid and stuff to go back to Eastern. But I didn't even know what I wanted a degree in, but I knew what I was doing for a living, scrapping and living at my brother's house and doing odd jobs. I was telling you some of the odd jobs I was doing, under the table work and stuff. I just said, this is not sustainable. And so I had a hard thought, and the whole trip was paid for, and I had a place to stay, and I chose not to go to France. And in retrospect, I look at it, that was in 88. Drugs and cycling, even at the amateur level, were at a high point, and I'd like to say I would take the high road, but I have several friends who several years later went and raced at that level, and drugs were rampant in the 90s. It was the early 90s for one guy, the other guy the mid 90s, and they both packed it up, and neither one of them touched the bike. now.
That was it.
They were done. The drugs were so bad. They were so delusioned by kind of how you felt about soccer, but in a different light. But so, you know, and I'm grateful for the sport, and I'll do it till, you know, I'm worm food.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad, although I did meet my practice wife that quarter. And so,
well, that made it better.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, even if I went, let's say something happened, one, I have this love for Europe, and I love it a lot. That could have altered. I don't know if I would have came back.
Yeah.
I would have figured out a way to stay, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now just from that one decision. That's how major, that's a major change. I mean, to choose, you know, in my divorce to not race, you know, that was one of them where I decided I can't race to save the marriage, but I'm back to racing. I still have the same friends, but that was a massive one. And I think in retrospect, that was the first time I said no, kind of basically quit.
Yeah.
It's like, and at that point, I'm going to do this whenever I feel like it, just kind of the way I'm doing it now.
Yeah.
And there's always next year.
Yeah, I've had a couple of years where I've left the sport. In college, I left the sport after probably my sophomore year to row on the rowing team. And then when rowing ended, I mean, it's not like you can. I mean, some people can. You know, some people have rowing clubs and there's communities and things like that. But when I finished college, that was it. You know, our last regatta was the last time I was going to sit in a boat and row with these guys. And then I was kind of floundering, to be honest. But I never got rid of my bike. I always had it. I would always go out for some short type of rides. It was always there. And I guess that's the difference between sometimes. I mean, and I'm sure we can all reflect and think about some of the people who've been around that we've seen in our group rides, in our races, and things like that, who were good for a while and then just kind of disappeared. You know, that, as you say, Paul, those people who found out about drugs and then sold their bike and just quit. I can't fathom that part of my life being gone. What, you know, and the things that take us away, you know, I've bumped into some people who used to be really, really fast in this community. I bump into social gatherings and they ask if I'm still racing. And I'm saying, kinda, yeah, I am still racing. I'm still lining up. I'm still starting races. And they almost look at me like going, wow, that's, you know, impressive that you're able to keep going at it. I don't think of it as something that's impressive or I'm still suffering in there. It's become a part of my life. Jackson, you and I spoke recently about how cycling is so important that we plan to keep it in our lives and even alter our careers to a certain extent. You know, you and I were talking about one of the perks of being an educator.
Yeah.
Is that it allows some of those times, although the school year is going to change in our lifetimes and in the next couple of years, but not so drastically that we're not going to have that opportunity to go there. So and you mentioned that, because I remember for a while there you were talking about I'd like to work in the cycling industry, and was it the ability to maintain a cycling lifestyle that made you choose not to?
I think the cycling industry sounds really fun on paper, and then it also sounds, as somebody who wants to participate in it, it's not that fun.
Yeah,
you don't really participate in it anymore.
Yeah,
and cycling is, to me, I've talked to my wife about this, and I've asked, is it bad that I want to also prioritize like the riding in my life? And every time she answers no, because it's just a part of me. It's a part of what I do. And so I think that having it as quote unquote a non-negotiable, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And do I like the schedule of being a teacher, getting off at a latest 4? Yeah, I do. Because it does give me that work-life balance, but I've also kind of found like a love for what I do at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's just, I'm in a very lovely situation where I get to kind of get my cake and eat it too.
And that ability to finish at the end of the day at a specific time of day, you know, give it, you know, ish, and to say work's over. I can shift gears and go to this. Paul, you said it today that your brother told you. What was this?
He said there's 2 ways to go through life. either work and do something you love to do, or find a job that allows you to do the things you love. And I'm like, that makes sense.
That does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so critical. Paul, you and I have left and come back. And that's to me, that's been the hardest thing in the world. I've been quote unquote coming back since the last time I kind of left and stopped racing, I think was pretty much when Jackson started soccer. And it's not your fault. Don't worry about it. I'm not blaming you.
I didn't take it that way.
At least to your face.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I stopped. I had to stop racing back then. I had won the Twilight Series that year, and Dad, look at me, I won a local racing series. But when I was racing twos and things were fast and things like that, and things felt good, but I stopped, and then took probably 3-4 years away from racing, and coming back to the sport for the first time in my life, because when I started cycling, I got fit fairly fast, and then you grew through the ranks, and you were fast in those ranks because you never took a year off or 2 years off or 3 years off. But then I went to college, but I was still rowing, so I still had that fitness. I still had that strength. I could hop on the bike and still do a fast 40K TT and qualify for nationals, kind of a thing like that. And youth didn't hurt. But then those 3 to 4 or even 5 years where I took those years off, I gained some weight because I was cooking and I was a stay-at-home dad and things like that. I have yet to, in my personal opinion, achieve, thank you, Paul, where I want to be again. And because I'm older now, it's even harder to achieve. So coming back from years off can be absolutely demoralizing. Am I the only one who feels this? Because, yeah, I mean, Paul, as far as I've known you, you've always seemed pretty damn fit and able to hop on a bike and go. But were there years where you're just like so far back, and other than, living like a monk, how did you get it back?
Yeah, this goes back to my practice marriage thing, and I had to take the year off, and
practice marriage.
And when I came back, I didn't know, because it was a huge contention in that marriage, because I dedicated a lot of times and made promises that I'd be home at a certain time.
Yeah,
and these are the easy traps, and
not the rule that if you're gone for 2 hours, say you're going to be gone for 2.5 hours or 3 hours, and then you're home early.
Yeah. That always helps.
Yeah,
but the problem for me is just even the way I am now. I mean, everything's cycling. I wake up, I'm checking, watching YouTube or watching, for cycling, and then watching if there's racing on. I look at the calendar for next year for my personal game. I mean, and back before cell phones, we had, at the end of the ride, we'd get on the phone. People would just be calling. It's like, dude, when this happened and this, kind of what we're doing here, but we just didn't have the venue, right? And so that became a grind. So, I thought maybe after a failed marriage and still not graduating from college and working at a bike shop, I needed to change my ways. So wasn't going in the right direction. So I took a year off. But then there was such a huge cavity of, this void that was in my life. And I was like, I got to get back into it.
Yeah.
But no promises.
Mm-hmm.
And went out with a couple of people that very good. They were a couple of Cat 1s and some strong Cat 2s. And a local college team from Gonzaga. We're training with them. And we were doing this ride up north in the Green Bluff. And I just got dropped, and these guys riding next to me, and hey man, it's okay. Those guys are really strong. It takes a while for it to get at that level. And I'm like going, are you fucking what?
Yeah.
In my mind, I'm like, hey,
shit.
you have no idea where I've been. and there's that pride. You have to swallow your pride and stuff.
Yeah.
But
I was in this sport when you're Saturday mornings were Bugs Bunny and a
That's right.
fudgesicle. Suck it. Yeah.
Exactly right. So there's times where you have, but I kind of got back into it, started going full blast. My current wife and forever wife.
The real wife.
The real one.
Yeah.
No practice here. The thing is I took on 2 kids at the same time, and I adopted our kids and stuff, and life changed, and I have a mortgage and now 3 faces to feed outside of my own.
Yeah.
And but I thought I could keep going, and she set me straight. It's just not, and it's not. You can't say it's her fault. Realistically, as you go through stages in your life, I think everybody has to find that balance with your significant other.
Absolutely.
And that's something that I think this EJ we're talking about,
Yeah.
who took 2.5 months off, he got married. So I think he's going to hit, in my experience, seeing people in the sport for the last 39 years, as I've mentioned many times, that's something they have to keep in mind,
Yeah.
that you better have your significant other on that same page, or it's not going to be a good season for you.
And I think you had mentioned to me, Paul, that his thing is, if I can get 1,000 likes, I'll go to the next race.
Yeah, so he's in that, after Cascade was a very poisonous, I think, to his experience, he's going to do a race up in Portland. He's going to stay in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And if that particular video that he has, and what was the title? I can't remember it.
You sent it to
It's something
me
that's
via text.
not my best performance or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
He says if he gets 1,000, he'll race again. And I think that's important.
Sometimes it doesn't go how you expect.
There we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think everybody should view that video if you're not familiar with it.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
I was going to watch it today.
I think that no matter where you are in your cycling career, at some point you're going to hit that,
Yeah.
and you get to make the choice to continue on.
Mm-hmm.
So, and hopefully he doesn't, because I think he can contribute a lot.
Yeah.
But some of that, and I was going to ask you, because I'm going to turn the tables. He went very fast, and he got a Cat 1
Yeah.
within 2 years. That's amazing. That would never happen in our day.
No.
And that's just not saying, oh, but
Yeah.
there was tons of people. There was just, everybody was after that same thing.
Yeah.
But you get to that level, and then at that level, all it takes, instead of back when you're a Cat 3 or even like a smaller Cat 2 race, you make a mistake, you can come back.
Yeah.
There's no margin for error. Every level you go up, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that again because that cost me.
Yeah.
And I think that's a hard one, because he's a powerful rider and he can sprint. He's got a great coach. But anyway, I'm going to go back to you because of your early success,
Yeah.
and then coming back. Do you think that's part of your struggle?
100%.
It's just,
100%. Just because I have this expectation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not an expectation. Yeah, it is an expectation. It is just, I grew up at the pointy end of the race.
Mm-hmm.
When I was young, as a junior, it was because I was bigger than the other kids. And I had strong legs, and my body type worked out. And I got to do that. And then, as I was saying, it was every year was just a slight increment, just a slight improvement, and things like that. And then when you take these 4 or 5 years off, it's not a slight improvement anymore. You have to, in order to get back to where you want to be. I don't expect to be at the front of 1-2s ever again, obviously. But I want to be at the front of my age group. But in order to do that, you have to be willing to not only work out as hard as the other guys, but you have to do more than the other guys in order to get back up to them, if you know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So if another guy's working out 5 times a week, he's doing however 100 miles, he's doing his intervals, he's weighing his food and things like that, he's not drinking beer. I have to be able to do all of that, plus I have to do more. Because that's just how it works. Or you take these small little increments and you slowly get back up. Jesus Christ, I've been trying to slowly get back up for about 10 years now. So it's now a matter of, what am I willing to do to sacrifice to get to that point? And even more so, is it that important? Is it that critical to me or to the person listening that I am at the front of the bike race? Or is it just I sign up, I go, I have a great time, I drink beer with my friends, and then I go home? And that's what I was going to ask you guys. You guys are all about the racing. And sometimes I have found myself about, sure, the racing, but also the riding. Being able to go out and have, be able to ride with people under half my age, and hang out and have a good time. And yes, I get dropped on the climbs, or I get dropped, city limit sign, you hit the gas. I was like, I'm sprinting. I am sprinting. And you're just going seated to accelerate.
Beep, beep.
Yeah. And, and I know that mentally I have beat myself up, and that's probably the biggest part of my problem. But that jump, that to go from that, to make those extreme sacrifices to get to that level, is it worth it? I mean, you guys, Jackson, you are at the pointy end of the race. However, when we go to some of the bigger groups and some of the bigger races and some of the bigger regional stuff, are you willing to make that sacrifice to go to that next step?
I think that it's really interesting because I don't know if it's necessarily a sacrifice or if it's more just me figuring out what it takes.
Yeah.
The more I've gotten into this summer, the more I've realized like what my capabilities are when I put the time in. Like this last week was kind of a pretty big week in terms of training for me. And then today I went out and I really did feel the benefits of what last week was.
Really?
And so, and it really didn't take away much, if any, time from being at home and being with my wife. We still got to do all the things we wanted to do. We went to a theme park on Saturday. We did other things. But I think I at least for me, I don't know if it is necessarily a sacrifice as much as just like the commitment to it. Because I think mentally sometimes
the sacrifice was probably a bad choice of words.
No. Yeah. I think I get what you mean, but I think sometimes I mentally go, that sounds like a lot of work after what I've done. But then once you go through that effort and you really commit to it, it does show you what it can give you. And I'm starting to realize that like when you put that amount of effort in, you get a lot out. I know that sounds like so simple, but it's really something that can be very surprising.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I need to quit looking at Strava also. I can look at my own Strava, but I need to quit looking at other people, because I think that's also a problem, because you end up comparing apples to oranges. Jackson, you're talking about quality versus quantity. Mm-hmm. And I know some people who have very different life obligations. Their careers allow them to have big chunks of time. Oh, it's almost like a teacher. But they're doing stuff like that, or their personal lives allow for more freedom and things like that. And then you see that they're ranking, clocking out the miles or something like that, and cranking all that kind of stuff out, and that can kind of build on that. But
mm-hmm. I mean, and I get what you mean. Sometimes I look at the guys that ride here every single morning at 5 a.m. every single day, and I know I can't do that, and I also know that I don't want to do that. And so what I do in that is I see you guys are probably ahead of me in terms of the fact that you do put in more hours and more miles than I do, but now I have to figure out how can I do the quality rather than, like you mentioned, the quantity. They're probably doing 300-mile weeks every single week. But if I put the effort in on the very specific things that I want to do well at, then I will. Yeah. It's the competitive edge in me, and I know Paul's there too. I can beat him. Yeah. That's what my mind goes to.
It's also Paul, when you and I left the ride today, when we split up, a couple times after we've done those, because where you live and the route I used to usually take to go home, I've kind of been taking a different route home. And at some points in time, I've been going actually the route back up home about 5-6 miles in the way I used to when I was a kid, when I was a junior coming home from my rides. And I would look out for the climbs and go up those climbs. One of them's 14%, stuff like that, and cut through the hospital and do these other climbs on the way home. And it got me today. And I immediately thought of Mandy Patinkin in the Princess Bride, Vicini said to go back to the beginning. So we are at the beginning. I am waiting for Vicini. And I just thought about that, and I was going, okay, Pat, you got to quit thinking about, and I might be a quantity guy. I might be a quantity guy. I might be a guy who just needs to just hop on a bike a little bit more often and not necessarily think about the structured intervals and stuff like that, but just find the hills and ride the hills home and stuff like that. And just find that back, because I did, and training's changed and racing's changed. But it's, again, to bring it all back, it's that the lifelong nature of it. I am in a room of lifelong bike riders. I'm in a potentially 2/3 of a room of lifelong bike racers. You guys are going to be pinning numbers on until you're dirt.
Yep.
Probably, right? Yeah. And that is such an important, integral part of your life. I find it so weird when there are people, and I try to empathize with them, who come into the sport, who do extremely well, who are kicking ass, and then just disappear. I've always found that hard
There's
to
a big,
comprehend.
long list of people that I know.
Yeah.
You know, too.
Yeah.
Where you were just thinking, whatever happened to so-and-so?
Yeah.
I mean, they planed out, and they're like, done.
And that's so hard for me to understand, because cycling has become, it's a defining part of my characteristic of who I am. I mean, look around this place, for fuck's sake. And Jackson, you probably didn't have much of a choice, but I'm joking. That was a joke.
No,
You
I
had a complete
had a
choice.
very big choice.
But it's interesting, the longevity and the lifelong nature of it that keeps me from quitting, as opposed to the people who, I'm not at the front end of the race anymore, I am quitting. It's an interesting dynamic. And you can meet people who are like that. Not to say anything bad about the people who do quit, because, world needs golfers.
Well,
Paddle boarders.
Yeah. I think
Pickleball.
yeah, we're getting a pickleball court where I am.
Up where you live?
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyways,
Mama's got a pickleball court. Daddy never sleeps at night. And,
oh yeah.
all night.
Yeah. What I was going to say is I think something our sport sometimes can create are the people that focus solely on the results.
Yeah.
And I think what's so interesting is, as a racer, a lot of people assume that we all focus on the results. But I think there's a difference between caring about the results and focusing on the results.
Yeah.
I think that, and I don't want to speak for anybody here, but when I enter a race, I really do care about the results. But at the end of the day, if I don't win, I'm not going to quit.
Yeah.
I'm probably sometimes going to look at myself and say, that was a stupid thing, you were stupid here, and beat myself up. That's the nature of who I am. But that's not going to mean I'm done. And I think that the people who focus on the results year on year probably look at that and go, I didn't win every single thing, or I didn't win this thing that I was so set up all year to do. Why am I doing this? And I think sometimes it can be really, really hard mentally to stay in something that doesn't give you back what you put into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
In terms of results.
Well, because I was going to ask you, if you got in a constant string of I didn't win. Okay, next year I didn't win. I mean, how many times you have to shift your perspective. You have to shift what your overall objective is. I mean, we talked Paul Cat 4 Kentner. I know he's probably not listening to this show, but he was the guy who was perpetually stuck being a Cat 4 for the. He was always stronger than shit on bike rides, but in bike races, it just never worked.
A mental freeze.
And how long until you shift? Do you settle? Is it called settling, or do you, quote, switch to gravel, end quote? Do you, do you become what was it? I'm focusing on gravity events, stuff like that. Do you do that, or you just keep going?
I think that's a personal thing.
Yeah,
it really is. And when you have didn't win, how many times?
Yeah.
So far, it's been 39 years. But it's one of those things like Jackson was talking about. It's like, for me, you don't sign up for a race thinking, hope I don't get dropped. I mean, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Oops.
You should not.
Yeah.
And you already have lost the race. To me, it's like, okay, I know And that's why I like pre-riding a crit course, and you kind of get a basic idea. When it's in your head, you can kind of see, especially as you get a little more familiar or more experienced, how people are going to take the corners and that type of thing. But, pack dynamics change, but it's just learning. That's the journey to that has been what I look forward to, and always looking forward to the next year. And if I didn't achieve it, or the next race, even if I did achieve it, it was like, now I've got to protect that. So if I won a particular race, I want to come back and I've got something to guard, and not expecting the same results, but that's my goal. And things are going to have to, I can't play that same card. If I do, there's a good chance I'm going to lose.
It's going to get right. Yeah.
So
I could go on. For hours about no, it's I try to make light of it, and I'm not as fucked up as I pretend to be on this show, but it's hard coming from an expectation of so many years of doing incredibly well to years of going, God, I hope I don't get dropped. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I never thought I'd be that person.
And you just need to, that part you have to change. It's not going to happen. You just don't allow it. And it happens. It's just like, I know, you assess it. I know what happened. I can improve my training here, but what part of that race did I do? Did I have that same guy? Because we were talking about, I got to get away from this guy. He keeps breaking in the corners. You get around him and he passes you on another section. Yeah. Damn it. I'm always, So, those are the things that you have to adjust, in order. And to me, that's the exciting part of racing. Sometimes it's the mental battle as much as the race itself.
Yeah.
I mean, when we went to Everett, I went into that first day thinking I'm going to do pretty well here. And then when I felt the speed, I was like, we got to live. We just got to survive.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to be dropped at that point. And that's something, especially coming from here, where I don't want to be the type of guy who always goes out and brags, but I would say that I'm probably one of the faster guys here depending on the day.
Big fish in a medium pond.
Yeah. And to go be in a very equal sized pond where everybody's the same size and everybody's got the same speed and BMI as you do, it's like, wow, this is a
little different.
Yeah, this is different.
And take you have to take in consideration that people over there they have scheduled races 1-2 times. Some guys are racing 3-4 times a week.
Yeah.
And that is an edge that we just don't get. That's huge. Even if you're not all that good, it's that comfort of, because our packs are bigger than they ever are over here. So it adds another dynamic that you have to adjust to. So
So in other words, keep the TNT on the same course.
Yep.
From the first 3-day weekend of the summer to the last 3-day weekend of the summer. Same day, same course, same time. Nobody's in charge, so there's no liability involved. Mm-hmm. It's just a common gathering that everybody just does. Yep. And then that's a race. That's one a week. Mm-hmm. All summer long.
Yep.
And I think we do have the community for it, too.
Yeah.
I think we've got guys who want to do the morning ride and then guys who want to do the Thursday night ride.
Yeah.
And I think we've got a really good community of people that want to keep that together.
And we all get faster in the long run.
Exactly.
And we all become lifelong cyclists. I hate saying that because lifelong learners is a constant thing they talk about in the education world. And there's certain terms in the education world that they just beat the shit out of. And lifelong learner, we're trying to establish lifelong learners.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, yeah, fine. I just want the kid to graduate.
Yeah.
And just go from there. So, okay. Thank you guys. I love being talked off of my ledge. Does anybody have, do you guys, are you segments, you guys got them for us tonight? Oh, that makes me happy because I can say that our segment's brought to us with help from our friends at Competitive Cycling. You guys go to your LBS, but if you can't find Competitive Cyclists, it is there to the rescue. Their huge late summer sale is underway right now. Be cheering. I was on time. I was going to finish that whole segment off before the bell, and then I fucked it up, and now I'm talking about how I fucked it up. Be sure and check them out for the specials. We have a link at packfiller.com. Professional podcaster. Jackson, you usually go late. Do you want to cool down early?
Sure.
All right, let's do the cool down with Jackson Bulger. I don't have anything. That's all I'm going to do.
All right.
Boom, 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 boom.
This week, I have not begun to notice. I've known this about myself for a while. I am somebody who, my wife and I use this term a lot. I hyperfixate, and I have trends. I have a lot of trends, and it's I think something that keeps my active mind busy, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But lately, before I'll get onto what the current one is. But lately, before this, it was like luxury sustainable drinkware. I know that sounds weird, but like a Hydro Flask or a Yeti or things like that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you just randomly threw those words together.
No, I really meant that. And because I bought, I would say 2-3 weeks ago, I bought a backpack cooler from Hydro Flask.
Oh,
and
damn.
I'm really excited to use it.
Backpack cooler.
Yeah, so it's like a 20-liter backpack cooler, and it is genuinely a cooler that you can put on your back and bring around.
For what type of purposes?
Beer.
Like camping? Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn right.
So I was going to say...
Jeez.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
You can fill it up. You can put a cake spout on the top. No.
Sweet.
Yeah, that'd be
Hose
great.
to your mouth. Yeah.
Get an IV. Yeah. But so what I was going to I'll get onto, and that's a perfect segue, is my current one is car camping.
Okay.
Because my wife and I, earlier in the year, we went car camping for the first time. Stayed in your car. There are a lot of products for this stuff.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have I have a 2012 Subaru Outback, and I just looked up inflatable matches for 2012 Subaru Outback, and they have all that shit out there. Like, and it's like a tool-sided thing, so if you're staying alone, you can only blow up one side. It's cool. It fits perfectly in the car. And when we went, the one thing we missed was I didn't want to lug a big, however big, 25-liter cooler.
Those
plastic
huge igloo things, or Yeti if you're...
We got a Stanley one. That one is
nice
too. But I didn't want to lug that thing all the way from my campground to the beach every day, because that's heavy. Plus you have paddle boards. Plus you have all these different things. And so I was like, that'd be great to have. And so I got working at a private school. I got a lot of Amazon gift cards. So
there we go.
Spend it on that. Anyways, this is my current hyperfixation, because I like to do that. And then every single winter it transitions over to bikes and cycling, because I've been away from it for a while. I get back into all the new tech of it that comes out over winter. And my question was, first I want to start off with out of the cycling realm, and then I want to go into the cycling realm. So first off, do you have a hyperfixation that's outside of the cycling realm?
Oh my God. Yeah, Paul?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's obvious. I like good quality beer. I mean, I subscribe to the Craft Beer Channel, which is a couple of English dudes and stuff that one guy is extremely well. I mean, he can figure out what kind of beer it is just by taste, just like a sommelier. So I like understanding the brewing processes and everything that just kind of, because every country has their form of beer. So anyway, that outside of cycling for sure.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What's yours?
This room in this show.
I was expecting a little bit of that.
I spent for the last 3 days probably 18 to 20 hours with the lights in here, replacing every bulb, programming it through with my phone, and I would say the Amazon-based name.
Right.
But I'd shut all the lights off if I did. So, yeah. And I can come down here and I can start rewiring something and just get into the engineering base of the studio or the website or stuff like that. Yeah. I'm hyper fixated on it year round.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trying to find ways in which to grow it. So everybody needs to subscribe and tell your friends to subscribe.
Exactly.
Please.
Yeah.
Or I'll die down here. That wasn't a threat. That sounded really fucking weird. But anyway, yeah.
And then, oh gosh, when it comes to cycling, I find it really interesting how I ebb and flow a lot. Because when it's like February or January, March, I watch a lot of like crit racing stuff, or I watch a ton of racing footage, like EJ stuff, NorCal cycling, all that stuff. I really get into, and then as the season goes on, I start to get into the little tech items until I'm at a point where I don't really consume a lot of that anymore, and then it all comes back. I have a very much yearly cycle of hyperfixations when it comes to cycling. Paul, what's yours?
About the time, about November, I start going in on YouTube and watching old classics, and that's what gets me going. I watch, Flanders and Roubaix, and sometimes I'll dabble on some old tour footage. I mean, like back in the 70s, whatever I can find. So vintage stuff. And that gets me through the winter, and then I get more current. I try to work like as far back as I can, so as I'm watching, by the time the classics come, of course, it's a big party. But when it comes to gear, this sounds terrible because I'm cheap. I just watch. I'm constantly on several sites or anywhere I can go that has like a sale on something I want.
Brake pads,
like brake pads.
Yeah.
Water bottles, I buy, that's when I dump tons of money. I have those red Scratch I've had for years. I bought like a dozen of them. Yeah. And it takes, every 2 years, every year I'm tossing 2 out. But, that just, before you know it, 6 years are down, and then it's time to buy. And I just wait. Yeah. So I kind of watch that, and same with tires, and I just stock up with all that stuff. So that's about it.
Oh, my God, that's great.
What about you?
That's wow. You know what, by the way, before I even answer, this ties back to why we haven't quit.
Yeah. Because
there's always something in the evolutionary or mental cycle that still is about the sport.
We've got a bit of a lifelong obsession.
A couple of years ago, I bought all the bike packing bags, and I researched the shit out of those. Yeah. And then I went for a bike packing trip, and I realized that was the dumbest thing I could ever have done. But yeah, so I'll go through those phases like that. Yeah. But when I'm online, I will admit because when I watch a lot of YouTube is with my wife, we watch for the adventure. We watch the people who are doing, fastest known time stuff, or things like that, and we'll watch that kind of stuff, those extreme endurance types of challenges, because it turns it into like a documentary feature. We like VC, what he does and that stuff he puts together and those adventures he goes on. I don't watch a whole lot of the intricacies of racing simply because when I'm watching with my wife. She doesn't really care about the difference between taking a current turn with rim brakes versus disc brakes or something like that, or your carb intake or stuff like that. But yeah, it always fluctuates. But when I find something like you, now I know the term for it. But when I find something I'm interested in, I'll dial in on it, or if I'm shopping for something particular, I will dial in on it and I'll look all around the place for it. So thank God for the internet, or we'd all probably quit years ago.
I find hyperfixations fascinating because they are like, everybody has a different one. Yeah. But what's so interesting about the cycling base of it all is that I would consider a hyperfixation that hit a dopamine that we like to get for a little while. That's a little bit different than what we usually do. But what's so interesting about us is we constantly go back for that same, not to use a drug term, but we always go back for that same hit, and we can't get enough of it. Yeah, that's what I find so interesting about a passion. Yeah, is we cannot get enough of it.
I think of what Roger just did. I mean, Roger started out his career in road. He transferred into triathlon, and we'll forgive him for that. Guy's a freaking stud triathlete. But now he did this Leadville challenge, and it is the same high.
Yeah,
it's the same. I just finished something exhausting, and I did well. It's that adrenaline jolt you get.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Interesting way to put it. Okay, but now on to the one and only Paul Main with his changing time segments, and I hope it has to do something with like watching old videos of Freddie Mertens.
No, but I can suggest some.
Okay.
So this is kind of on the topic that we've been talking about, and I shared this little meme that I found floating around, and it says it's very hard in the beginning to understand the whole idea and not to beat the other cyclists. Eventually, you learn that competition is against the little voice inside you that wants to make you quit.
You almost made me cry today at the pub because that was like the biggest thing I needed in the world. I was just like, oh my God, did you do that just to fuck with me?
No, and everybody has that. And it can happen in a race. And like we were talking about EJ,
Yeah.
That's what it is. He got in and he even said, I got in my own head or, that type of thing. And I've wondered so many times what kept me going. And I'm going to paraphrase what Bob Roll in his very first book that he wrote back when he was still racing in Europe and lived in Belgium. And it was called, we call it Bobke, but in Belgium they call him Bobka is where his nickname came from. And somebody was interviewing and they said, what's it like, racing bikes and stuff? And he says, 97% of the time you are suffering. You're wondering why you're doing this. It's terrible. And, you just struggle. Yeah. And, the 3% of the time it feels there's nothing better on earth. And they said, well, 97% of the time you're suffering. Why would you do that? Yeah. And he said, I do it for the 3%. And that's what it is. It's that when you hit that high, and whether it's once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year, maybe
once every 3 years.
Yeah. Once every decade for me. So, that's what you're after. And I think that's what, if you're passionate about whatever it is, whether it's cycling, ice skating, gymnastics, obviously not breakdancing.
No.
I think all of us have that. Whatever you're really passionate about, you got to keep in mind when you're in that dark space.
Yeah.
Remember that 3% time.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Words of advice. We're gonna end with the final K as a question that we all have to answer in 1 minute and 4 seconds. All right. So, gentlemen, the final K for tonight is when I hit the button. What's the worst thing that you have eaten in the past week, either in taste or in health content? Worst thing for you, and it can't be beer because beer is not bad.
No.
It's good for the soul. Jackson?
I mean, technically it's not good for you physically. I did have a McDonald's double quarter pounder.
That is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still took Sam's KOM, so don't feel that bad about it. Died. Yeah, well, couple days.
Paul?
I'm trying to think. I'm pretty selected on my food. I think there was, unfortunately, I had a pizza the other day.
20 seconds.
And it was just a straight cheese pizza.
Oh, okay.
And I did not sleep well. I thought I was going to throw up.
Oh.
And I don't know if it's the pizza.
10 seconds.
Something else.
Mine was a breaded chicken sandwich at Super One with pickles on it.
Yeah, those are disappointing.
Au revoir.
Hey, everybody. Thanks. This brings us to the end of another Pack Filler podcast. Be sure and like and subscribe. It truly helps boost our power, and it keeps me from... Never mind. It keeps me alive. It does. No, I'm not. That sounds like a threat.
Keeps you going.
Keeps me going. Thank you. Because that sounded like I'm going to kill myself or something like that. And I'm not going to do that ever, unless, I'm really, really going hard and my heart stops. Because that'd be good. Right. That'd be good. He went doing something that he loved, which is the biggest bullshit you would ever put on a headstone in the entire world. Because never mind. Drop us a review with your favorite podcasting platform. I went down a dark hole there, and I apologize for the end of this podcast. Sam would have stopped me.